Hi, Birchwood community. Well, we're starting our second quarter, which is pretty terrific. And the purpose of this state of the school discussion is to talk about some of the external factors that surrounding the school. It has nothing to do with the actual operation of the school, but it could affect the school. And I want you to know how we're going to cope with them, especially related to health and safety. I think before I do that, we really ought to have a collective pat on the back. We did a whole quarter of school. We didn't have to shut it down. There were no cases of the coronavirus. And we've picked up some wonderful momentum, which I'll mention in just a second. But I really attribute that to everyone assuming personal responsibility to do their part in making sure this is a safe environment. I know you do it at home. We do it here at school. And I think that collective effort has allowed us to keep the school open and has allowed us, at least up till now, to prevent any spread of the coronavirus among the children or among the staff. Also, I think you should realize there's been some momentum. I interviewed almost all the teachers and asked them, because at this point in time, there's a number of schools that have already closed down or will between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And there are lots of reasons for it because of the spike. And so I've asked a lot of our teachers, how do they feel? And almost to a person, they wanted to remain in school, claiming they built up momentum and academics are going well. The children are happy and they really prefer that we not have to close down the school. So we'd like to continue. We'd like to maintain that unless some external forces, state mandates or anything else insist that we have to, some kind of law or mandate. Now, right now, the coronavirus infection rate is spiking. That's become a problem. We mentioned last time, more indoors. One parent mentioned Minnesota, so they can go out till it's really cold, and I agree with that. But a little bit hard to sit on the concrete and eat your lunch when it's 30 degrees outside. But we'll still encourage that. But nevertheless, there's going to be more indoors. We've got the holidays coming, holiday gatherings. And then one piece I'm going to talk about in a little more detail in this presentation is sports and indoor sports during the winter, and what's going to be our posture on sports in relationship to your family and to your children playing sports. As I mentioned last week, the greatest threat that we have to having to close the school or having some infection spread is a breach of the bubble we've created. Now, if you could imagine if somehow we were to make sure no one outside of the school and no one you have contacted has any possibility of contracting the coronavirus, then our mitigation processes within the school and all our protocols, they're really more preventative, the rare case of something happened. But the real danger is some breach because of where children have been for a weekend or what environment they've been in or some gathering you have been in, and then there's a chance to bring in the coronavirus. So that still is in our mind. That's where we've got to stop it. That's where we've got to be most careful. And that's where individual responsibility comes in. In the few schools that I've read about across the country who are successful remaining in school or doing not necessarily remote, but some kind of hybrid education, their success has really been because of a community effort, a respect on behalf of everyone for the bigger picture that I take care of what I'm doing with my children because I want that school to stay open. It's good for everybody. And so that community effort has been very important. And I think we can learn a lot from the world of sports. I love sports. I'm a huge fan. And sometimes they're way out ahead of things. I think of racial discrimination. The sports world was way ahead. Sports world and somewhat the military until later. They were way ahead of the general population because they had to deal with real problems. So they attacked them head on. And so I seeing the NBA just finish and we're in the middle of the World Series and football has started up again, professional football, college football, high school football, middle school football. And I've heard even some elementary school football. But the basic principle is that you make this very, very tight bubble around. I know I recall reading an article about a couple of Chicago Cubs baseball players this summer. After a game, went out and partied a little bit, and the coach found out about it. They were off the team, just like that, because everyone realized we are going to keep ourselves safe, so that we can keep playing this game. If we don't keep ourselves safe, they're going to shut down this game and we can't play anymore. Well, in a sense, that rationale is very similar to how I look at it. And I think how many of the teachers look at it. We're being strict with ourselves, strict with what we expect parents, because we want to keep, quote, playing the game. That means having a dynamic education in school for all of the children as much as we possibly can. So that kind of principle is where we're coming from when we're thinking about how do we deal with the winter sports, whether it's volleyball or whether it's basketball, gymnastics, hockey, any one or number of these. What is our posture on these if your children is participating? We mentioned last week, just in general, related to your holiday gatherings or any other gatherings that you may find yourself in or hosting, that they should be small. The state is recommending 10 or less. There should be some level of screening ahead of time, meaning it could just be, my goodness, these are my two kids. And I've asked them, are you safe? Have you not been around anyone who could have had the coronavirus and you're infected and you bring it into our house? You have the confidence that you can trust them. That's important. And then even during the time, they're masked, they're distanced. There's an environment where you have the confidence. We have all cared for one another's health. We haven't been loose in where we've been, who we've been hanging out with, and any possibility that we could be doing something that would harm others when we come together. Winter sports takes a little bit of a different approach, and I'm going to refer you all to what the state, excellent list of requirements for any kind of sports sponsoring institution, whether it's professional, whether it's schooling, whether it's recreational, all different levels. There's a standard of how they should conduct their sports program. And our posture is going to be this. I know a lot of families have their children participating in a lot of sports, and I think that's wonderful. What we will expect from you is that you can assure us, number one, my son's playing basketball, and that institution has either showed me or I have confirmed that they are following all the protocols that the state has mandated. And there's quite a few, and they're very thorough, and I respect that work. However, you would have to, number one, let us know. My son's playing football and he's playing in this institution. And yes, they follow all the state regulations. That will be what we will expect of every parent to let us know. I'm not going to be hunting around. Are you playing football? Are you playing basketball? Are you in gymnastics? I'm expecting parents whose children are participating in sports, indoor sports, that they will inform the school. I've had a few parents whose children are playing sports at Hawken. Now, I know the Hawken program. I know the people there. So I have full confidence it's being conducted in a way that will, as much as is possible, the children will not be exposed to any kind of danger in the spread of the virus. So therefore, they will not bring it into the school. But let's say your children are playing basketball at a recreation center, or they're playing hockey at a recreation center. You need to find out, do they follow all of the state regulations, and you need to inform the school. In this way, okay, we make a couple of decisions, and this I have to be firm on. We can make mistakes. We've had some families who went to parties or hosted a party and were not very careful about how the children played, how they interacted, where the other families came from. And when they told us about it, we were frank. Can you just quarantine for 2 weeks? I know it's a hard stand on our part, but I have to do it. I've got nearly 200 families to be concerned about, and the continuation of this great educational program that we have. So let's say it's the same thing with sports. Your son is on a baseball team or a basketball team traveling, and they head out 2-3 hours from Cleveland. And it's, one of these locations, and I've been to some in the last few months, where nobody wears masks and there's no social distancing. And there's even been cases of the coronavirus, but there's just no restrictions. Okay, you would need to let us know. I think my son needs to be quarantined for 2 weeks because they were in that environment. And I cannot guarantee there wasn't any exposure. Or if whatever is the sport that the children participate in, you have that awareness. Or you have the awareness, no, that they really are careful, and they're very, very thorough in screening. They take temperatures before the kids practice, before they have a game. They're quite thorough. I'm fine with that. I love sports. I think they're a huge compliment to a child's education. But in this period of time, I don't want something going on outside of school to affect the operation of the school the way it is. So, if and if some parents said, well, no, I don't know if that organization follows all the state mandates, I haven't found out, then I would ask you, please go remote. That's a choice you're making. You're making the choice of basketball, or you're making the choice of um, wrestling, for example. It's a winter sport. You're making that choice, no problem. But the school can't pay the price for that choice. And we would recommend, so for that, during that season, please go remote. But if you've checked out the sponsoring agency and they're following all the protocols, then I hope your son and daughter have a great experience and they win. We're totally behind you. But we've got to make sure everything is transparent, and you let us know when there are issues. An occasional time we may ask, please take 14 days off, quarantine, because you're not sure who or what they were exposed to. And similarly, if you make a decision, this sport for my son or my daughter is more important than the school, that's not a problem either. We'll accommodate you with remote learning. But please keep in mind, if there's been any compromise, you would then let us know. And then we may just say, well, how about if you just do remote learning until the season is over and any dangers are past. So I do want you to understand, this is what's happening now in school is really wonderful. We've got some great momentum going on. I've even discovered in math and language arts, and some of the other teachers have, because we're inventing things all the time. We're finding things that are valuable to the education. So I just see our education not only remaining strong, but becoming better. And I think it would be a tragedy for us to have to change that. And I hope you would have the same feeling about the big picture, and you would take my direction concerning sports in the spirit that it's shared in, is do whatever you can so your children can participate, but do it wisely. Make sure the institution you're participating with is following all the state measures, and that includes spectators and after the game and before the game. It's a big gamut. They have really taken their time, and you can see many of the high schools in our area have been quite successful. We're down to coming close to the playoffs. Because those schools have been faithful to the protocols the state has mandated. So please, with the junior teams in high school or in elementary school, the recreational teams, make sure the state requirements are in place. And if not, you've got to let us know. Well, in either case, you let us know so that we have the confidence that even if your children are playing sports, it's being done with respect to not just the rules, but all of the safety and health protocols in place. Okay. And let's keep our fingers crossed. I want to, in the midst of all kinds of schools closing down, and there are more and more as the numbers spike, I'd really like to keep Birchwood open. I think it's the best for all the children and the best for the community at large. All right. Thank you. And have a great week.